Getting a space that looks like this doesn't happen on accident. If you missed part 1, this is the new ProCon headquarters. Last time, we talked all about why we moved and why we needed a clean slate to totally reimagine how we were using our office. For reference, this is what our old office looked like. It was a pretty dramatic change. But knowing you want a warm, inviting space that's beautiful and functional is one thing. Actually pulling it off is something else entirely. So for part 2, we're going to take you behind the scenes of the entire design process and hear from the team of people it took to collaborate to make this space a reality.
This was our 3rd time designing a space together. We kind of know the process. And we got to give a shout out to Linda. Linda's been part of our ProCon Phase 1, ProCon Part 2, and then here's the 3rd version.
Hopefully we were easier than Linda's typical clients, but
yeah.
You're going to have to hear from Linda on that.
I love those guys. My name is Linda Wild. I have been with ProCon for over 5 years, but I've had the pleasure of knowing Mark and Q for about 13 years. I was really grateful that Q asked me to be on the team. My role in this particular project was designer/project manager. And since I have the design background in commercial interior design, I was the one that sort of took the lead on the space planning and the test fit, helped guide them through the programming exercise, met with all the departments, and then make sure that their requirements were going to be rolled into.
Hang on a second there, Linda. That was a lot of design lingo all at once. So for the uninitiated, let me break it down for you. The design process has several steps, especially if you're starting with a blank slate like we were. There's a lot you have to do before you get to start picking out light fixtures and lounge chairs. Phase 1 includes many of the things Linda just mentioned. First, what functions do you need your space to serve? What are your list of requirements? If you're designing a shared space like an office, you're going to need to ask quite a few people, so that list might be pretty long. Then that list of functions and needs gets translated into a list of rooms to meet those needs. We need quiet, private spaces for anyone who's at our office to do work from for an hour or for the day. So sounds like we could use some bookable shared offices. How many? Enough, but not too many. How many's not too many? Linda knows. Turns out for us, the answer's 11. Okay, so we need 11 offices, 3 closets, 2 huddle rooms, and a studio. That's the program for the back half of our office. Will all of that fit? How are we going to Tetris in all those rooms to maximize efficiency and space? That's what Linda does. Linda takes an empty concrete rectangle and draws up a precise plan, aka a test fit, to make sure the space has everything you need and fits just so. It's pretty cool when you think about it. So now that we're all caught up to speed on the more nuts and bolts part of the early design process, we get to start diving into the fun part. To tell you all about that, back to you, Linda.
The vision for the space was really that the front of the house would be the showpiece. It was going to be a gathering, a meeting space, an entertaining space. So it wasn't going to just be a standard office. They made some really smart decisions and they said, who's using this space? How are we using this space? And how can we further our presence in the industry? I don't think that office spaces are being designed now as meant to be a shared amenity for both industry and the company. I think it's going to really pay off because we're not using office space the same way anymore. There's a struggle to want to give up the seated space when that just isn't as important as it used to be.
I think we should admit that going into this project it is an experiment. We don't know. We're hoping the investment here in this office is going to get people more time in the office. We think that that's probably the biggest downside with remote work is not having the physical one-on-one connection with our employees that we feel like we might have had in the past. But I think we wanted to have this place of experimentation and offer enough customization to how someone might want to work.
But it was going to be different. It was not going to be the old way of doing business. We want people to come in and be intentional, to congregate and to connect and to build community. It wasn't good enough for just coming in for the sake of coming in. But there are other purposes why someone would want to come into the office as well. We have a lot of people in the DMV area that they may not want to work in their basement anymore. They can get their own private space if they want, or they can kind of park here in this common area.
We got our banquettes here, the conference tables, the lounge setting. I think we wanted to offer as many options to people, and we definitely didn't want to have the open cubicles anymore.
There was still a lot of thought given to what the office space would be, but we didn't waste a lot of square footage on a seat where somebody's going to sit down with a laptop. That's how we work now. So they had made a decision that they would use less square footage.
We reduced the footprint by, about 40%.
It's not that big of a space, but we wanted it to be as useful and well thought out as possible to make sure we accommodated what you do need in an office. You have to think about the back infrastructure, even though you don't want it to show or be so present, it still has to be there for the space to really function.
Future will only tell whether we made the right decision.
We will be judged.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So by me being able to do that and having the skill, here in-house, we could spend a lot of time on it and really do a lot of back and forth before we turned it over to a commercial interior architecture firm for the actual implementation of our vision.
Did you really think we did all of this ourselves? No way. We definitely had some help. So sounds like we have another introduction to do.
My name is Liz Weimer, and I'm a principal at Forum Architects and also the director of design there. Forum Architects were a boutique design firm that specializes in workplace design. On the project, I was the lead interior designer and project manager.
It was a large collaboration on getting us to where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And maybe you get a little bit of the credit, but it definitely was a wider team of involvement to get us this.
All the credit goes to Form and what they did, because you know me, I don't have those type of skill sets to be able to make those type of decisions.
Forum did a really good job being really involved in every phase of the project. And to Mark and Key's credit, they were really hands-on and involved as well. But they also relied on their team to sort of weigh in on all those decisions. So we all had a hand in it. And it was a great partnership.
It was really great working with a client that has more knowledge of the construction, architecture, design industry, just because of that mutual respect for what each of us was bringing to the table and our own expertise.
They understood the materials that we gave them, the space plan, the vision boards, and they kind of were on the same page, and they had a lot of similarities in how they approach design.
We kind of found that sweet spot for the project pretty early on in the process, and it allowed us to really move a lot further and deeper into the design faster than I'd say I do on some of my other projects, and gave us more time to work out some of the much finer details and give the space a little bit more of a holistic feel.
I felt really at home with Liz just because all of her decisions I thought were really good, and I felt really good about it just because we sort of ended up having a similar design aesthetic.
We have some really, really highly skilled people that know exactly what we're looking for, and we have to trust the process.
There would be times when Q and Mark would be bantering about something. They would be kind of negotiating something off the side. And I would kind of look at Liz and I would say, I think this is a good way to go. And she'd go, yeah, it's a good way to go. And so it was easy for us to help steer them in the right decision because I felt on a lot of times on the same page.
Okay, now that we know what we need and who's gonna be on our team, we can finally start to answer the most important question. What's this thing gonna look like?
When we first talked with Q and the rest of the team about the look and feel of the space, especially out here in the more collaborative zone, we always talked about it in terms of this boutique hotel feel.
It meant to be where you come in and you could sit down in a variety of different seating environments, feel cozy, be able to work at a table, a desk, and a lounge chair.
We noticed that all the designs were very amenity-based. We took a lot of inspiration from there.
The coffee shop idea.
Coffee shop. Well, I generally work at a coffee shop. So.
Honestly, during the design process, I felt like there was a lot of agreement on what things wanted to look and feel like and how things wanted to lay out, which was great.
So boutique hotel lobby is the design vibe we're going for, but what's our design style?
We started the process where I did sort of mock-up color boards, images of what I thought they were telling me with words.
They wanted to be very inviting, warm colors, walnut feel.
What you might say as, I want a warm, inviting space, might mean something totally different from me than it means to you. And so we use a lot of imagery and questionnaires to really dive in and understand our clients so that we're all getting on the same wavelength.
And we went through that design process. Do you like this photo or that photo? A shout out to Linda. She knows the both of us, and
Right.
so she knows what we like and what we don't.
They have very different opinions, and they'll tell you right away, which is great. You always want a client that will do that.
I think there were some parts where you and I weren't even on the same page.
But I think that we both knew that this needed to be clean and modern, and we wanted high level of finish.
Mark and Q have very different sort of design aesthetics. Mark is pretty contemporary and mid-century, and Q has more of an eclectic sort of, comfortable sort of sense.
I think there's definitely a mid-century vibe going on here. I think that the furnishing selections as well as the furniture give that vibe, but there's nothing really overly traditional here.
We may have subtle differences, but I think our design taste is very similar. I think you and I like structure. We like symmetry. If you look at our space, we have a mixture of structure, formation of things that are just kind of put together that makes a lot of sense, but there's nothing that kind of pops out at you. I wouldn't call it abstract. I would call it, maybe I'm talking over my head here, but that's what I would say.
Requirements, check. Vision, check. Style, check. Now it's time to move on to what most people think of as the design phase. Here's where we start making concrete decisions on how all those lists of needs and points of inspiration we've curated are actually going to be executed in our space.
We really wanted to have this openness. We wanted a connection with our employees. We know that they're not going to always be here. So when they are here, we wanted them to be able to see each other. And I think that that's really why this side is so open, without walls and without obstructions, is to invite that collaboration. And
the space is 100% open through means of like materials, floor, ceiling. She was able to create multiple spaces within a very open space.
I think that really started with not subdividing even these zones with walls or partitions or things that cut you off visually, but just having cues within the different design elements to say, this is a zone for lounge, this is a zone for eating and sharing a meal together, but they could all also mesh together where you could have 50, 60 people in the space and it feel very comfortable. Really, that's where a lot of the life and culture is built in the office. The curves really helped give a good progression into the different zones of the space and then also define those zones without it feeling closed off. It kind of started in a smaller way with some of the curves around the conference room and the phone room, but really that language started translating and making sense to be brought into a lot of other areas. So it really helped support that function of the space.
And so far, so good with having events we've had, like not problems with people talking over each other, too many people talking at once. So I think the design incorporated some acoustic elements to try to mask and allow for that conversation over there. Doesn't necessarily echo across the room over there.
The Procon space is really strong in that, yes, there is a lot of heads down space where people can go into a private office and really focus on their work. And there's even more collaborative area so that teams can come together when they are in the office. But that collaborative area doesn't just have to be for collaboration. We have the booths in the space and we have lots of different lounge setups that can easily work as extra spaces for people to make that their home base for the day. Really thinking about the whole office as someone's workspace.
But the best part of the office is this office here.
Yeah, this is a great view.
But we wanted to dedicate this office to collaboration.
The whole function of the huddle room was kind of a discussion.
This is going to be a lounging area for people to meet, just another meeting space.
Informal meetings.
But it's more for lounging.
Is it going to be a conference room? No, it's never going to be a conference room. But then it was like a big, open, eclectic kind of coffee bar thing. And it didn't have a door. Then it did have a door, and that was a compromise. And Q really stuck to his gun.
This guy's planning to take naps here, apparently.
Well, that's what you said.
Design has a lot to do with making something both functional and look good. But one of the most easily overlooked aspects of a great design is thinking about all the things you don't want to see.
We also baked in a lot of storage because with all the marketing and the networking that gets done, you end up with stuff, right? So nobody wants to see that. So we built in storage to accommodate that. So the space is intended to always stay neat and clean.
And then we also wanted to hide the coffee machine, the microwave, and things like that. So they're kind of hidden in a cabinet. And if you need it, you open it up.
Well, in the older offices, it was not front and center, right? And so this is switching the paradigm where the kitchen is a focal point. And so I think that these hiding things and not having your sugar and your creamer so exposed is sort of an important.
Even the functions of the pantries, having it be presentable for guests, but also having it be intuitive so that people could come in and use the space and not wonder where things are.
Now, the one thing that we didn't do for this office is we eliminated lateral filing, because the other office, like when we were cleaning up, the only thing that were inside these lateral file cabinets were people's chapsticks and gums. And we're like, I don't need more spaces for junk to pile up.
We boiled it down to the departments that actually needed those lockable, sealed locations for cabinets. And we really kept that to a minimum.
Remember how I said there was a lot to do before you get to start picking out light fixtures and lounge chairs? Well, it's finally time.
I think I attended one design meeting and there was a lot of discussions. And so I was like, it's way too much information for me. I just want 3 options. Well, Mark did a great job, but just not being involved in the sausage making process. Right. I stepped away.
Oh, they say that, but they were in the nitty-gritty planning.
Oh, I'm sure.
The finishes went pretty smoothly. The backsplash was kind of exciting because, you know, half of us liked one, half of us didn't like it.
That might have been the only thing we might have disagreed
Metallic
on.
backsplash, right? I was a little skeptical on this Liz selection of this tile, but
I was not. You
now seeing it, it really
Look,
it blends in well.
yeah.
It actually looks like it could be some
You thought it was going to have
metal
too
grill or
much
metal-
sheen, but I love it. I love everything about it.
We really wanted to make sure that this area that everyone shared, that it was the best part of the office. So everyone is able to partake in the best part of the office. The things that we decided to compromise on that are a little bit more utilitarian, so we didn't necessarily need as upgraded of a fit and finish in those rooms.
What was the thought? I wasn't in the meetings where we talked about the ceiling, so we wanted a certain amount of exposed ceilings and we did the black treatment. What was the thought?
There's a particular lighting element that's going to be installed in our space out here that has clouds. It represents little clouds of like shapes.
So we wanted something that felt very custom in this space, something that felt almost like a chandelier, but we also wanted to keep in mind our budget for the project, actually these metal rings. And I believe there's 15 of them up in the ceiling that are pre-manufactured clouds, but we laid them out in such a way and twisted them and turned them so they each look like they're unique, even though they're all repeated. And then pairing that with light fixtures that fell right through the middle of them.
And last, but certainly not least, let's go pick some furniture.
It was funny because we got to the furniture process, and I'd say that was the process where there was not huge disagreement, but definitely stronger opinion.
I wanted all of these chairs here, but Mark kept on saying,
sit down
it's
there.
going to take away from the view. I was like, how is this chair going to take away from this view?
The furniture that went in that room was a big discussion point. Those chairs.
I like this one I'm sitting in. That one is a little monster. I mean,
That's what
bigger.
you want. Like, you want something a little more monster. And then in here, we got these little dinky chairs because you were so anti-big chairs. Yeah, you don't remember? You were like, I don't like the high backs.
I seem to remember settling on this, and you must have snuck this order in somehow.
No.
This was rejected roundly by most of the design team.
They're really great chairs. They're comfortable, they swivel, they do everything that they wanted to do when they decided what the program would be for that room. But I don't know if Q will ever go in that room and say, these are my favorite chairs in the place. They might have done things differently left to their own devices, but I think they're happy with the end result, both of them equally, which is a real win for everybody.
We definitely took the opportunity to sort of imagine a new office environment. And I think our space kind of captures that. We're really happy with the way everything turned out.
So far, so good.
And there you have it. That's the design process. That's how you go from this to this. Or, well, I guess there is one last step we missed. We still have to go build it. But we'll save that for part 3.